Welcome to If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo podcast with Don Purdy, former member of the Buffalo Bills front office, 27 years, and Josh Cormier, a member of the coaching staff under the Wade Phillips regime. And we are here, as always, to talk with you about the Buffalo Bills of 1990 and, of course, 2022.
Welcome, everybody. Don, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Josh, yourself?
I'm doing real well. We're going to have Randy Woody Ribbeck on in a little bit, the longtime legendary Bills assistant equipment manager. He's going to share a bunch of great stories about, the team, the locker room, memories.
What a vantage point.
Yeah.
And for that long, I think maybe only one other person in Bills history spent more time in the Bills locker room.
And he's a character. And he's a character. And if you wanted somebody in the locker room for 40 years, Woody was your guy.
He didn't beat around the bush.
Right on. So we're going to start here just talking about the 1990 team a little bit. And they came off one of their more memorable and iconic victories from that season, the 30-23 victory over the Eagles, which, featured them coming out to a 24-0 start in the first quarter. I remember that game as the game where the no huddle seemed completely unstoppable. I feel like that's one of the first times that a team called like a timeout on defense, like a basketball team to stop like a run. And then, of course, it also featured probably one of the top 10 plays in NFL history.
I think it is, according to NFL Films.
Is it? Okay.
It happened against the Bills, but it happened in the context of the Bills winning, so it's like easier to talk about.
It was 98 yards, Randall Cunningham to
Fred Barnett.
Fred Barnett,
yes.
yeah. And you know what's funny? I've watched that play a couple times. Bruce had a real shot at him in the end zone, right?
Yeah, and he we talked to Mike Lotish about this play because he was on the field at the same time, and Bruce had him buried, but then he rolled over him. It was just you couldn't believe what you were seeing. And Cunningham got up and threw the ball, shoot 60 yards in the air. Burnett caught it and ran for a touchdown. It's crazy.
Funny because that play and that missed tackle in the end zone from Bruce kind of foreshadows the Super Bowl play when he gets Hostetler's arm but doesn't knock the ball loose. Like, I've watched that play a couple times, and when you know what happens later on in the season, it just becomes a little more interesting. Yeah. Did find a couple of pretty good quotes here from Jim Kelly. He was fired up. They had lost the week before to the Oilers in Houston.
They were 9-2.
They were 9-2, coming off their second loss.
Tied with Miami.
Right.
Here we go again, right?
Yep.
Tied with Miami, having lost to them. Miami as a tiebreaker.
Yep. So Jim Kelly said, we knew that there were some individuals who said we couldn't win in December. We wanted to shut a few people up, shove it down their throats. We knew we could win. We know our talent. I had time. The receivers ran their patterns, and the ball was thrown well. Jim was fired up after this one.
Yeah, and the December thing, I assume he's talking about weather and pressure and injuries at the end of the year. I remember the day was a spectacular weather day.
Well, and they had taken a couple of tough losses in 88 and 89. Remember, they blew home field advantage in 88. Yep. They lost to Tampa Bay 12-5 or some weird game.
That's right.
And then in 89, they kind of faded down the stretch before the Pickering Bills and all that. So I remember, just like this year, you wanted the 1 seed. And the 2 years before, they had dropped these random games in places which cost them home games.
With the 1 seed still within sight. It was in
that
play.
Tampa Bay game was in 88 was so equivalent to the Jaguar game last year. It's like, how did they lose this game?
Right.
It was weird. There's another gem of a quote from Buddy Ryan here that Buddy Ryan said that they came out fired up, but we didn't throw up our skirts. I have a feeling that one wouldn't play real well in 2022. And I'm not quite sure what Buddy meant by that, but it does lead me to a story, Don, that I don't know if I've told you or not, and it's one of my better ones. There was a few guys on the coaching staff when I was there that had been linked with Buddy Ryan over the years. They'd coached with them. Okay. You're going to probably figure out who this is pretty quickly, but
I got a good guess.
We were talking the one day, and Buddy came up, and then his sons Rex and Rob came up, and it was real early in this coach's tenure with the team. And he proceeded to tell me a story when he was on the staff with Buddy, that Buddy bet him $5,000 that he would have penis enlargement surgery. Do you know this story?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. And
when you said the Buddy Ryan story, it was the other person I was thinking about. Go ahead.
Okay. So now I'm sitting there in his office, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, so how did this bet go? And he goes, well, he bet me $5,000 that I would have the surgery.
Would or wouldn't?
That Buddy said he if he had the surgery, he'd give him $5,000 cash and pay for the surgery. Now, I don't really remember or recall why this was a topic, but clearly this bet happened. So I'm real skeptical of this. And I'm like, oh, this guy's, full of it. I'm like, whatever. So he goes, no. I had the surgery. And I'm like, and Buddy Ryan paid for the surgery because it's cosmetic surgery, obviously, and it's not covered by insurance. And I'm like, so wait a minute. He paid for this surgery. You had this surgery and he gave you $5,000 cash. And I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I don't believe you. Well, sure enough, he starts going into details about, they cut his abdomen open. They took out a piece, and then you can imagine how they enlarged the other area. And I'm still real skeptical. And I'm like, this is you blowing smoke up me. And at the end, you're like, ha, whatever. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I just flat out looked at him. And I'm like, I don't believe you. He goes, oh, well, really?
Oh, boy.
Stands up from the back of his desk. He had on a pair of white bike shorts. And sure enough, he just yanked it down. And there was no doubt after the visual evidence.
And so you are Ron Burgundy jumping into the bear pit calling him out as like, I immediately regret this decision.
Absolutely. I sat there in shock and in horror, and I thought to myself, the NFL is a little different than what I had envisioned and what I expected.
How apropos to have Woody on today.
Yeah, Woody.
Right. He won't go there.
But but Woody does share a Rex Ryan story as well. And I actually thought of you,
Buddy. Would you say Buddy?
I'm sorry, Buddy.
Yeah.
And I actually thought of you the other day. I was watching. Was it Sunday Night Football or whatever? And I know you and I have laughed about this over the years, but someone scored a touchdown and took the ball and chucked it at the stands. And do you remember that famous Kansas City-Houston playoff game, the year that the Bills beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game? The week before, Kerry Cash infamously scored a touchdown in the Astrodome, and there was a giant mural of Buddy Ryan in the end zone, and he took the ball and he chucked it at the big thing of Buddy Ryan,
right between the eyes,
right, and hit him right. And it was kind of like this, and they were killing the Houston defense that day. But so that quote from Buddy Ryan reminded me of that story, and I know who this person is, and this person was not shy about flaunting his post-surgery goods.
Oh, you're gonna have people Googling that. They won't find anything, I don't think.
Well, listen, it happened, it is seared into my memory, and my eyes didn't lie, and it was $5,000, and it was the cost of the surgery, and I will never forget it.
Wow, John. All right, then, time for Woody.
Yeah. True story.
That's wild.
I didn't name a name.
One. Okay, we are joined by Randy Woody Ribbeck, the former Bills assistant equipment manager. There are very few who've spent more of their life in the Bills locker room, from preparing the right equipment for the right weather conditions to positioning the equipment for the whole team and staff at home games and on the road. Woody is known around One Bills Drive as one of the hardest workers to ever come through the Bills organization. He's also known for being, let's just say, direct. And we anticipate nothing less here today.
I'm going to just share a couple quotes from some former Bills legends about Woody. Andre Reed, in an article after Woody retired, said, Woody Ribbeck is the man. That guy worked harder than anyone on the team while I was around, and always a great guy to see when I returned to Buffalo. It will not be the same going to training camp and not seeing Woody sprint from station to station. I'm going to miss my man Woody. And Thurman Thomas, a great friend and the best equipment repair guy I've ever seen. He would work on equipment and get it fixed faster than most the guys who change tires in NASCAR. Those are two Hall of Famers, Woody, giving you a lot of love. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for inviting me into your great show.
Thank you. All
right.
Where are you calling? Where are you calling in from?
Basement.
There you go.
Hit the ground running here.
There you go.
Right locally, right?
Yes.
So Woody. Well, let's. All right, here's
So
something in your back pocket.
So I was excited when Don told me that Woody agreed to join us. I have a story to share. I was an intern for a couple years, and when I was lucky enough to get, and I had dealt with Woody in the locker room through having merchandise and bringing stuff to the guys, and I always found Woody. I knew that Woody, kind of liked me because he, kind of give me shit, which I figured out pretty early on was kind of his way of like welcoming you in. And at the time I had, gained a significant amount of weight, and I had gotten promoted over to the football side of things. And I'll never forget, it was like February morning, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, I need your pant size for when you get dressed for the sideline." He's like, "What are you, like a 4X?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I think it's time for me to probably drop a few pounds." And I was able to drop 75 pounds in about 4 months. And thank you, Woody, for your directness and your candor and your way of helping motivate me to get out of 4X.
I'm going to help you out.
Was that the first insult you ever threw in the locker room?
No.
No, I figured you had a few. So, hey, listen, I know a lot of fans are curious about a lot of things and the way they happen in the building. Take us through the timeline for positioning. So practice is over. Well, you have a Saturday walkthrough. So between a Saturday walkthrough and a Sunday home game and after the game, and then the same thing for an away game. How did those hours play out for you and your staff?
What we had to do is I work with great guys, Jeff Mazurek and Spencer Haas, and they had everything down to a T. We would, after practice, we would get the players, while practice was going on, we'd get all the equipment, put it on the truck, take it down. Then we get the players' bags, load them on the truck, take them down, unload them all, make sure the locker room is game ready. The only thing that we would actually have to wait for is the players to show up on a Sunday before the game. Then after the game, we depend upon if we stay there the following week or if we moved, we would take everything back on the truck to the field house, unload it. That's where we had staff that would help us out tremendously and do the laundry and get ready for next week's game.
So I think it was 2000, maybe we got the new administrative building. So everything used to happen right there at the stadium. The locker room was there. All the offices were there. People are real excited. I'm guessing you weren't that excited because, like you just said, even for a home game, you had to take the equipment in a truck, even though it was only 200 yards away from the field house to the locker room. So
yeah, the reason why I don't like it is we actually had one player who was a starting member of the team. We saw him during the national anthem. I says, "Where's your helmet?" He goes, "I don't have it." "Your jacket?" "No." So we had to go get a ball boy, run up into the field house, grab his helmet during the singing of the national anthem, and come down and put his helmet on the guy's head. He was not the sharpest tool in the shed.
that kind of leads into the perfect segue to, in Thurman's quote, he did mention that you are the one that found his helmet during Super Bowl 26. Yeah. Is that true? And can you everybody kind of knows that story, but I don't know how many people have heard it from your point of view. Like, what happened?
What happened was, after the national anthem was sung, the staff or the people that were on the field were supposed to walk around the 35-yard lines. They instead walked straight out into where the players are. They were between the 35s. They were supposed to be on the outside. So as they walked in the inside of the 35s, you're looking at 200-300 people just walk around with players. And we're just trying to watch all our stuff. All of a sudden, Thurman says, "My helmet's missing." So I'm looking around, just pushing people around. And I grabbed one guy and I said, "Look, you're in charge of your crew." I said, "Right now we are in trouble because whoever, from what I was told, whoever is announced from the pregame must start the game." And luckily for us, we kicked off. So it took probably about a good 5 minutes for those people to clear the area. And all of a sudden I looked around, so I see a helmet rocking back and forth, and someone stole his helmet.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I never heard that story before. All these years.
On the other end of the bench. And Thurman would put his helmet down on the side that we defend the bench, and it wasn't there. So I started walking in the opposite direction, and there it was, rocking. Somebody just put the helmet down.
Wow, just so casually.
Can you during my short time there, I thought you guys worked as hard, if not harder, than anybody else that I saw in the entire organization. How many hours a week was it for you, like during the season? And then was training camp even more intense and more difficult for you guys than the season itself?
I think during the regular season we probably worked close to 80 hours a week. Training camp I hated. I wish that we had training camp here in Buffalo, where everything is here. You'd be at training camp. All of a sudden, some guy will say, or player will say, "Hey, I left a pair of shoes in the locker. Can you get them for practice?" Yeah, we're just going to fly over there and get it, but we have to figure some way to get it to the training camp. Training camp hours helped us when we had interns. They did a lot of laundry for us. He passed out the laundry. They had more people helping you when it came to field setup, field breakdown during the drills, during practice. It was good for all of us to have as many people there as we could. But in the early days, we had 3-4 people at the most, and you're doing 2 or 3 jobs all at once, and it was just long days at training camp.
Yeah, having the extra staff was huge. But I remember for I did the seating charts for the flights for the preseason games. First of all, instead of 53 players, you have 90. But that means just like your staff, Woody, and the strength staff, they all had beefed up staff. So I mean, those planes were packed. But I mean, it's just the way it went. Everyone knew it was the preseason, and when the regular season started, everyone had plenty of room on the plane. Which, by the way, it was funny to watch people that were flying with us for the first time, because very much unlike a regular flight, as we're landing, okay, we haven't hit the ground yet. Woody is standing up, walking to the front of the plane before it even lands. And people are like, "Can he do that?" And we're like, it's kind of our plane for the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just funny to watch. And, you were so casual about it. But,
well, I like when a person who was flying as a guest of the Bills would sit between 2 players and say, "This guy's not even supposed to be back with the players, and he's not even supposed to be in between anybody. He's supposed to have assigned seats."
Yeah, that's a foul right
there.
Do
you, Woody? Do you have a favorite game? How much of the action were you able to watch? As during a Sunday. Do you have a favorite game? A favorite memory?
I would say the first AFC Championship game we had in Buffalo against Raiders. The other one I liked was the comeback game. The Raiders was 51-3. The players on the Raiders side just want to get the game over with. They didn't care. When we did the comeback game, I was talking to people that I was with, and I couldn't even hear them talk. That's how loud it was.
Yeah. You had an interesting perspective down there. I mean, Marlon Kerner was telling me that during the play, you hear the crowd until the play starts, and then it goes kind of like Saving Private Ryan, where all you hear is like you're underwater, and you can hear the calls of the teammates, and then the play's over, you hear the crowd again. So you were right in there. So there had to be some games that you were preparing for during the week, and it's not like there's a weather czar that you could totally trust, but you could see a few days out there was going to be bad weather. You have to prepare for that. Were there games, Woody, where you felt you knew that you had prepped the team with the right equipment, and maybe your opponents got caught off guard and maybe didn't prep as well?
We knew the stadium serviced pretty well, and we knew that a player would have to wear a certain shoe, and some players on the visiting sidelines wore the wrong shoe, and we don't want to have an equipment manager look bad, so we told them what to do, to wear, and they didn't. So we covered our asses. We covered his ass, but the players decided not to wear the right shoes. And after the game, the coach went to the fellow equipment manager, goes, "What'd you do?" He says, "Coach, I told the players what to wear. They wouldn't wear it." We really don't want to stick it to the other equipment managers, because we don't want to stab them in the back, and we try to be nice to them as best we can. There's been one time we had a team come fly here and play. They in turn went to London. We in turn washed their uniforms and had them shipped back to their home site.
No kidding. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite road stadium? Do you have any good visiting locker room stories? I mean, probably back in the day, some of those visitors' locker rooms were not the most welcoming places.
Raiders.
Probably one of the worst ones was Cleveland. It was a regular baseball stadium locker room, maybe built for maybe 25, 30 people at the most. The trainers were taping players in the shower. Uh, they had not man-made lockers, but those steel lockers that are maybe about a foot wide, and for 60 guys, there's no room. Then you had to figure out where you could put all the staff that goes on the road trips. And there was this, and we had stuff in the hallway. We had to have security guards watch our stuff so nobody would walk around because we're literally right in where all the fans are walking by. It was a nightmare. One time we were playing against, I think it was in New York City in 1981, 82.
The old Meadowlands then, yeah.
We're at Shea Stadium. I says, that's a nice cat. And the guy said, no, it's a rat.
Okay, lovely. Henry Kuntu was on with us, and he said at the Shea Stadium there was a fan giving him a hard time. It was a poor vantage point that he had to film from, so a fan could actually get like right in the way of the camera. And He kept telling him to do it, get down. He wouldn't do it. Finally, a security guard
put his handgun up on them.
Yeah, gave him a gun just to show it to him, and the guy never saw him again for the whole game. So, I find it interesting. I didn't realize that you had kind of an understanding with other equipment guys from other teams that you kind of help them to an extent. But I heard, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but I heard that there was a time where you went for an interview with another NFL team. And if I understand this right, they asked you kind of a scenario. Hey, how would you prepare the team in these kind of weather conditions? Right. And again, if I heard it right, you politely declined to answer the question because you said, you know what, I still am employed by the Bills, and I'd rather not give that away. Can you share anything about that with us?
In fact, it was a funny story with John Butler and I kept getting a phone. I mean, as you know, I used to do a lot of pranks at stadium, and I get a phone call from a guy by the name of Floyd Reese, and I kept hanging up on him because I figured somebody was playing a joke. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from John Butler. He goes, "Hey, are you getting a phone call from a Floyd Reese?" I go, "Yeah, who is it?" He goes, "It's Floyd Reese, the general manager of the Houston Oilers." And I go, "What does he want?" He goes, "He wants to interview you for a job, but before you do anything, do not sign, do not commit, do not do anything verbally, orally, or, anything." And I said, "Okay, fine." So I called him up, and he goes, "When can you come down for an interview?" I said, "Well, this is just when we just got beating them in the comeback game." So I went down to him, and John Butler said, "Do not do anything." I said, "Fine." So I went down there, and the first person I meet is Buddy Ryan. He goes, "Son, I hear you're here for Gordon's job." I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "God bless you." I go, "Oh, great. Strike one." Walk in the locker room, seeing Warren Moon, who I've golfed with. He goes, "What the hell are you doing here?" I says, "I'm here for Red's job." He goes, "Seriously? What are you, stupid?" Oh, that is strike two. Then I had a meeting with Floyd Reese. I had a meeting with Jack Pardee, and I went in the locker room, talked to a few of the players I knew, a few of the coaches. And I asked guys, when it comes to budget, let's say if I buy a pair of shoulder pads for Warren Moon or get them fixed, what's the process? Well, you have to get bids. From bids, they have to be okayed, and then you can get them made. I said, well, if Warren needs them tomorrow, what is the policy? Well, it's going to take you a couple of weeks to get the supplies in for him. I go, I'm not telling him. You're telling him. I says, I'm going to say, look, I did my job. It's your job to tell him that it's red tape. He goes, oh, no, we don't do it that way. I said, well, too bad. Then I found out that I asked for a company vehicle. Oh, you get a utility van. I go, I just need a car. He goes, no, utility van. You'd be bringing all the equipment back and forth after the games. Oh. And I says, okay. And he goes, and when you're not doing the equipment, you need to mow the grass and line the field. I said, okay. And remember that situation where at the Astrodome where the turf was all messed up and they had to postpone the game to the next day?
Yep.
Well, that would have been my responsibility. And I said to myself, that is strike three.
Wow,
so
that's brutal.
So then there's more to the story. You'll love this one. So I am sitting in the locker room on Saturday because I want to talk to John Butler about this. He goes, how many times have I told you? I will call you and we'll talk to you on Monday. go home, think about the reasons why you want to go, why you don't want to go. And I said, okay, fine. So I go see him on Monday morning at 8:00. He goes, I will call you. I said, fine. So I'm just sitting there, wondering what's going on. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from John Butler. He says, come on up. So I come up, run up the stairs, and he goes, I just barely hung up the phone. Were you outside in the hallway? I go, no, I ran up the stairs. He goes, come on in. So I come in, and it was nice. John was good through all this. I went to shut the door. Behind the door is Marv Levy. So I have Coach and John Butler ready to talk about what's going on. And John says, we're not ready yet. I go, what? We have one more person to wait for. I says, okay. I'm not. What am I going to do? Say no? All of a sudden, the back door opens. Mr. Wilson comes walking out. So Mr. Wilson, John Butler, Marv Levy.
The trifecta.
Oh, yes. So I'm sitting there. All of a sudden, John starts talking. Ralph looks at John, eating popcorn all over his John's group V-neck sweater. He goes, I own this team. I'll do the talking. I said, okay. So Ralph said to me, I understand you had a meeting with the Houston Oilers. I go, yes, sir. He goes, we just beat them. I go, yes, I know that. And he goes, I understand that we play them in July. I said, well, we actually play them in August, but you're the owner, so you know it. He goes, yeah, we play them in the Alamo Dome. I said, no, we actually don't, but you're 2 for 2. He goes, you were given a lot of money from the Houston Oilers. I go, yes, sir. He goes, CBA, that is just going to kill us. I said to myself, my money has nothing to do with the CBA. It's coming out of your pocket. So he goes, we wish you a lot of success and we wish you good luck. I says, well, thank you very much. So I went to shake his hand, full of butter for this popcorn, shook John's hand. And as I was leaving, I shook Marv's hand, and Marv says, John, if Woody leaves, I quit.
Wow.
John Butler said to Marv, if Woody leaves, you quit. Looks at Ralph, I quit. So you have two people that of high stature are ready to quit if I leave that door.
The highest stature.
So Ralph looks at him and says, God damn it, pay him. So thinking, from what I understand, it was all a setup. I didn't know it. So I went downstairs and I went to see Jerry Ferran the next day to sign my papers. And he gave me the wrong numbers. So I said, John, these are the numbers that we agreed upon. He goes, yes. I said, John, can I talk to you off the record? He goes, sure. He goes, I would have stayed for $1 more. He goes, get the hell out of my office.
Well played, Woody.
It was nice that I was respected by those three gentlemen.
That's an amazing story. That can you share with us? Like, do you have a list, 3, 5, like who your favorite players to work with of all time? Or
I probably went through 4,000 players.
Yeah, I'm asking you to narrow it to like 5.
I would say Joe Devlin, Fred Smirlis, who I lived with for 3.5 years, Jim Kelly, Daryl Talley, and oh boy, I say a tie between. I mean, it's hard to pin it down. It's hard to, because if I say one person, the other person's going to hear about it and say, "Hey, what about me?" I would say from 1981 to 2018 were my favorites after those guys.
Thanks. That's like a Mount Rushmore of favorite players right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So, that Houston story is amazing. I had never heard. I only heard the one part of it. I had no idea it went to those lengths. But you had shared with me recently, actually, that there was one training camp, I think in 1996, and Marlon Kerner remembered this because I told him about it. There were a bunch of fights breaking out at training camp, and to the point where it was really annoying the coaches. And you kind of came up with a little scheme to see if you could deflect attention.
It worked.
Well,
what'd you do?
During pass rush, I would be the quarterback. and I would tell the coach, I want it live. I want it to be realistic. And I'll tell you a story about that. Remind me about the Pittsburgh game. And all of a sudden, two guys started fighting. I said, this is bullshit. So I decided to jump on top of Reuben Brown, and I started beating him. And all of a sudden, the player said, fight, fight, fight. And the guys that were fighting stopped, looked to see that I was beating up Reuben. And I said, Reuben, hold on me tight. So him and I were holding each other, and he couldn't separate us. And all of a sudden, you hear the coach says, Woody, let go, let go, let go. I says, no, is the other fight done? He goes, yeah, okay, we'll let go. So we just, just get that, just to break it up. Another thing about fighting is, or I say, misinterpretation of words from players is one time we had Fred Smirlis and Jim Richter were fighting during training camp. This is back in the early 80s. In fact, it was with Marv. And Marv says, man, those two guys are fighting all the time. I said, Coach, they live together. He goes, oh my God. I go, yeah, it's not good when you have two guys that are fighting on the field. Did I say it right? Yeah.
Off the field and on the field.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good.
And now another thing about the pass rushes that I used to do, which I loved, is we were scrimmaging in Edinburgh against Pittsburgh Steelers. And I said, Coach, I don't mind if you go live, but if I get hit and it's going to be a cheap shot on either player, I'm going to go after the person and give me the cheap shot. He goes, okay. So we went live. And I said to the coach, I says, I'm going to catch the ball. I'm going to turn around and not look. He goes, what are you, nuts? I go, no. Look, the offensive line with Ken Hall, Will Wolford, Howard Ballard, John Davis, and I'm forgetting somebody.
Glenn Parker.
Yeah. No, before Glenn.
Will Wolford, did you say?
Yeah, Will.
Wolford, yeah. Richer, maybe Hall, Davis, and Ballard, maybe. Sounds like that was a line at one time. Yeah.
Those five. I would get the ball, do my stop, and turn around and look behind me. I would turn my whole body. And the coach says, what are you, nuts? I says, these guys know that if I get hit, I'll get them back. Not now, I'll get them back later. He goes, wow. And but when that was during one-on-one. But once he went on, the whole line versus each other, I stood in the pocket and never got hit once. So the Pittsburgh O-line were on. And I says, guys, if I get hit, I will hit you. Because I know these players know what to do when they get a hold of me. He says, oh, fine. I said, Coach, you do me a favor. He goes, what? Get out of the way. Why? Bruce Smith is up. I says, before I have the ball in my hand, he'll have me picked up. He goes, no way. I go, yeah, way. So as soon as I got the ball, guess who was right in my face? Bruce.
78.
The coach says, you know your players very well. I said, yeah. I says, your line needs a lot of work.
So for so many fans that have been to home games, if they recall on a kickoff, okay, the Bills are kicking off, they would see you, the ball would be kicked off, the whole team would sprint down to, obviously converge on the return guy. In the meantime, you would sprint off the sideline, get the tee, and bring it off. Were there ever any close calls, like maybe a squib kick and, the up guys got it, all of a sudden the play's coming back at you faster than you would have thought?
I would wait for the whistle. But one thing I really hate and I regret is when they had the T-ball, T-girl, I am just zoned in on the game. I'm not zoned in on people yelling my name on the sidelines who knew me. I'm not zoned in on the celebrity sportscaster who's next to me. I'm focused. And I tell the people, I'm going to throw them under the bus. Make sure you grab me and say, don't run out. Because I ran out a few times. And all of a sudden, and the T-ball, T-girl is, and I'm saying, mother, and I already have the T in my hand. And I look, and the kid's like 50 yards behind, well, actually 33 yards behind me. I'm saying, oh, man. So I threw the T down. One lady complained to the NFL or to the Bills, saying I threw the T at her child.
At her? Oh, wow.
I said, no. I just walked away, and I was getting booed by the players and getting booed by the fans. But, I tell the people, I'm focused during the game. I don't really pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah. It's hot down there. I mean, and it's the heat of the moment. So, Yeah, that's good stuff.
Woody, before we let you go, we with the players and other people we've interviewed, we've done something called the 2-minute warning, where we ask 10 quick questions in 2 minutes. You just give us kind of a rapid fire answer to stuff that is just kind of fun and off the wall. And
Is this rated? Do I have to keep it rated G or rated R?
No, we're not live. So you let it fly like it's the locker room.
I believe it's coming out real soon.
You let it fly. So we'll get started here. And Don, you want to go first?
One is not applicable except.
Well, no, I think yeah. Since you've retired, Woody,
yeah.
where is the best place for you to watch a game?
So to be polite, my position was terminated.
Well, okay, there you go. So where's the best place that you've watched the Bills? Yeah, we all are. All three of us are. Yeah.
Well, we're doing fine.
We're doing fine. Where's the best place you've watched the Bills game since you are no longer there?
My house.
Okay. 3 people, dead or alive, that you'd like to have dinner with.
They are dead or alive?
Yep,
Yeah.
that you want to have dinner with. If you could pick 3 famous people.
I would take John. My parents are 2.
Okay.
And the third person would probably be Jesus.
Okay.
If you're walking into a room and there's dry ice and spotlights on you, what's your entrance song?
I don't have one.
What would you want it to be?
This is how I do it.
There you go. That works.
All right. So, what's the best concert you've ever seen?
That I remember?
Yeah.
I would say Garth Brooks.
At the stadium?
Yes, another good concert because I know the guys are Rascal Flatts. I like all of them.
Favorite Buffalo restaurant, and what do you get there?
Ooh, I have 3. It would be Elio's for sure, Chef's for another, and Russell's for another.
All right. Good stuff. Your favorite cartoon growing up, or?
Oh boy, I didn't really watch much cartoon because I was had football practice.
Fair enough.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
What's a popular food that you don't like?
Pork.
Hmm.
I like it. But I don't like pork chops or pork loin or anything like that.
All right. Can you drive a stick shift?
Barely. In fact, here's a story about stick shift. I had to borrow Bruce Matheson's truck. Remember him?
Yeah. He was before my time, but I know of him.
His truck was in storage, and I had to drive it. And I said, I never driven a stand before. And they said, it's like a rhythm. So I got it going, but to make a long story short, his truck was hurting after I got done with it.
Two more. Do you have a favorite player on an opposing team over the years that you either worked with or had interaction with?
Probably Dan Marino.
Really? Why?
Because when I first met him, I was helping Jim Kelly do his golf outings, and he asked me all these questions about, where's all this stuff going to? Do you want my autograph? I said, no. I said, if I need your autograph, it's going to be for a specific reason. Until that time, I don't need to talk to you. He goes, no, do you need something signed? I go, no. I said, if I need something signed, I'll let you know. So we had a game in Miami, and Dan shows up, and he goes, Woody. I go, what? He goes, I'd like to meet you, a friend of mine. I go, friend? Seriously? He goes, yeah, it's Darius Rucker. Darius Rucker, this is Woody. So him and I talked for about a good 2-3 minutes on the sidelines. And the funny thing is, he went to sing the national anthem at the stadium a couple of years ago, and the people, he was sitting by himself. He says, Darius, what's going on? He goes, people just think I'm a normal black person here. They don't know who I am. And I said, oh, okay. So we talked for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden they finally realized who he was. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's great. So listen, post-career, we've talked to a lot of players, and it's one of the things they miss is the camaraderie. And my gosh, you were, for all the time you spent in the locker room, I'm sure that it's relevant to you too. But you told me the other day of something pretty cool that you're doing these days with the wheelchair basketball. We had Bud on a while ago. Is that the same thing? Tell us about that.
Well, I knew that Bud was involved with the football team, but I didn't realize I'm playing my doggy here, as to the extent of it. Bud was one of the coaches for the team, and he's been around the NFL quite a long time and pretty much knows the rules better than what the NFL referees know already. I don't care if they hear this or not. So Bud says, I need your help. I said, what? He goes, we have helmets that we need to have decaled up. Can you do it? I says, I hope I can. He goes, I said, how many do I have to do? I'm thinking maybe 50, 60 helmets. He goes, nope, 12. So I started doing it. Also, I started watching practice and noticed a few players had their helmets on wrong and fixed them. And a lot of people don't realize how much work is involved to move a team like that and how they are actually discriminated against in airports. Because they're in metal chairs, they have to get out of the chairs, and some of these guys can't get out of a chair. They're permanently stuck in the chair, except to go to take a shower or go to the bathroom. But otherwise, they're just in there. And one guy went through the metal detectors 3 times, and you gotta be kidding me, And people just give us dirty looks when they get on the plane because they have to get up front because if they have to go to the bathroom, they have to have access. Get up here. They have to get access. Get up here. I'm talking to my dog. Get up here. There you go. So it was an eye opener.
Sure.
We went to play a game in Salt Lake City, and just to see all these people that are in wheelchairs and this way some of them are treated, it's a shame. So, but I got a good perspective of it. I think everyone should get out and I'm not trying to promote, but
promote it. Yeah, it has a website, right?
It's sad, but they live through it and they just are used to it, and it's something that our people today should not treat people like that.
Yeah. We really appreciate your time, Woody. And can you tell me how many times did you say the words air and eye black in your career?
Oh boy, probably about 700-800 times.
Yeah, I just remember you in the locker room running around, air and eye black, air and eye black. That was so you knew it was game day.
After a while, the players said, "Okay, we got it." So but saying it and I miss the people that I work with. I miss the players, miss the camaraderie because it's a big family. Because you're with them, I don't know, 80 hours a day, and you know them better than their wives do. Because you see them, they'll talk to you, and because they trust you. Because if you lose your trust, if you lose their trust, you're done. There's nothing you could get back to. There's nothing you can do to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, Josh read a couple quotes at the beginning of this from just 2 players, but their sentiment is shared by pretty much everyone I know that's ever worked with you. It's how hard you work and how loyal you are. And so this is. I appreciate you talking with us, Woody. Really
I'm not done talking yet.
Well, good. You want to leave us with something
for an hour and a half. One thing that was nice is when I got terminated from the Bills back in 2018. I just laid low because I was pretty much in shock about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I got a phone call from, remember Steve Chaplin?
Yeah, he went to Indy after he was with us, right?
Well, he went to Indy, then he went to work with the Alliance of American Football, Bill Polian.
Oh,
he said, do you want to work in for the league? I go, sure. So I must be pretty good at my job to be asked to work with the Alliance of American Football as Bill Polian being the commissioner and work down there for 7 weeks. It was nice. We had a few former players, we had a few former coaches, and and the best thing was Moose Johnson was our GM.
Oh, Darryl Johnston, the fullback from Lewiston, the Cowboys fullback?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had Mike Riley. Remember Bill Bradley, defensive back coach for the Bills?
Yeah. You worked with him.
Right? Yeah, he was there when I was there.
Yeah, you had Teddy Cottrell. You had Doug Whaley, Joe Pedri. It was nice. It was almost like a family reunion every time we went to a different city.
Yeah, those guys, a bunch of guys you worked with.
A bunch of guys I worked with. Do you have a good Karl Mock story for me?
Not one I can really use here. We all out.
I told the very first day that I was over the football department, he came into Max's office and he so eloquently told me that I was lower than whale shit and I should never forget it. He drew it on the whiteboard and threw the marker at me and walked out of the room. And that was basically the only words he spoke to me for about 6 months. So you were actually much nicer to me than some of the coaches.
a low bar.
Low bar.
One bar only up.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. And if you have any other stories to share or whatever, or say thanks for your time. And I know that all the guys are gonna be excited to hear from you, and we're gonna tag a number of the former players, so hopefully they'll be able to hear your interview, because you deserve our time and you deserve their time to listen.
Well, thanks. You need more talking? Let me know. I'll be around.
Here's how we'll leave it. Will you come back if we ask you to come back down the road?
Sure.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Woody.
Appreciate it, Woody.
Emotional gifts for being on your show at all, or just
Half of nothing is nothing, Woody.
A week's supply of rice-a-roni.
Yeah, half of nothing is nothing.
Right.
Take care.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Great
Take care.
stuff. Thanks. Vintage Woody is awesome.
Yeah, Woody didn't disappoint. He's exactly what I remember him to be,
Yep.
and everything I said in there about him. He's a real hard worker and a humble guy in his own way.
Yeah, and there were stories there for as long as I've known him that I didn't know. I found myself just kind of good stuff.
All right, we're going to spin the wheel of failed Bills coaches, Don. And as I always remind you, you were the director of football administration for 13 years, and you earned 0 playoff berths. So hence why the wheel was born.
During that tenure, I was fortunate enough to have the early years, the '90s. But that particular
yes, when you were grinding out the decisions in the ticket office.
It was a playoff drought.
Yes, and yes. So today the wheel lands on former NFL player and coach Tyrone Wheatley.
Tyrone Wheatley. Okay. He obviously was a great player, Michigan, right?
Yep.
What I remember about him was when he first came in, he was talking to people around that lived there, Paul Lancaster, player engagement director, and others about he knew his son was going to be a stud football player.
And he played at Canisius High School, I believe.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember where he played, but wherever he was going to play, he knew that like this team was getting a ringer, and he wanted obviously for his son to go.
Did he play running back?
He played offense.
Okay.
No. Hold on. I think it was odd because Wheatley was a running back, right?
Yep.
But I think his son was like a defensive end. But they played both sides of the ball in high school too. But I remember he talked about it, in a proportionate way. Like he wasn't just all that. It was cool to see that. And when he moved to Buffalo, he knew nothing about it. And he was a real good guy. That just jumps out at me as how he. Part of how he viewed the job.
That's got to be kind of cool to be an NFL player and then have your son, pick up those traits from you and be a heralded, recruit or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay, well that was an easy one this week.
That's
right?
pretty easy. There's probably more I can think of later, but at this time,
Do you want to share with everybody who we have lined up for next week?
Hey, early next week, we are scheduled to talk with former Bills receiver Don Beebe. I've been in contact with him, and he was the head coach of his Aurora College football team, and they had a nice year. They made it into the quarterfinals, and the season ended there. But he kept saying, "Yep, as soon as the season's over, love to talk to you guys." So
his loss is our gain, and I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him. Obviously, his most famous. He has two famous Bills plays, right? Being dropped on his head, and then
I'm going to ask him about that.
And then of course the Super Bowl, the Leon Lett play.
You could argue he made a huge play in the comeback game.
True. Yeah, sure. All right. Yeah, there's 3. The first touchdown when he was out of bounds.
Yeah,
he was out of bounds.
Yeah.
Okay. There are
no
3.
replay yet. There are more. 4 touchdowns in one game against the Steelers.
Yeah.
I want to ask him about. No one knew who he was. We didn't have a first-round pick that year, and we're like, we got the fastest guy coming out of the combine, but there was no internet back then to know what he looked like. And I'll just say this, and a lot of people have said this, like he comes to Buffalo, like you're the fastest guy in the league.
Right.
It was a profile.
It is what it is.
What a great guy, great player, great Bill.
And if anybody's listening and has a question, or I'm trying to think of kind of a different way to approach the Leon Lett story, play. He's been asked about that, I'm sure, a million times. So if there's anybody who has kind of a fun way to ask him a question, and leave it in the comments or tweet at us at @ifbuffalo. I'd love to ask him, maybe from a little bit of a different angle about that play or the aftermath of that play, or something different than, hey, what do you remember from chasing down Leon Lett? He's probably answered that 500 times.
And I like to think, Josh, you and I spend a little bit of time sometimes talking about, hey, how can we have to ask a guy either a different question or a question in a different way? But we welcome the help.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of help, the Apple country list, we're going to add 2 more names to it, and I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the Netherlands, because the Netherlands, unfortunately, did knock out Team USA from the World Cup the other day. I felt like the United States made a nice little run. The World Cup is here in 2026. Shout out to my friend Biplab, who is in central Pennsylvania, and he and I have already made plans to go to Philadelphia in 2026, when there's a World Cup game there.
Oh, really?
And yes, he is my soccer mentor, and he was texting me strategic updates during the U.S.-Netherlands game, which I didn't quite understand about their form and their formation, and it's amazing. I felt like watching soccer, not really understanding the nuances of it, or how a lot of people watch football. Right. And, the more he told me, the more confused I was. It wasn't necessarily helping me. I mean, obviously I know the rules of soccer, but the strategy and the flow of the game and all the nuances that I clearly don't know, and he does. It was real interesting, because then we've had those conversations the other way, where I've just tried to explain to him the nuances of football, and that's hard too.
The best thing the league ever did there was put in on TV the line, the first down line, to help people. Okay, you have 3 or 4 chances, 4 technically, to get to that line. If you don't, you give the ball back to the other team.
The best example of that was Monday night, when Mark Ingram just tanked it out of bounds. Obviously, the line. My wife Jody said, she said, we were watching a game the other day, and she's like, you forget that they can't see the line. Right. Mark Ingram get the first down. The game's over if he gets the first down, and he just tanked it out of bounds, and then the inevitable 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 stop. So yeah, it's fun to talk, a sport with somebody who knows a lot more than you do, and I'm learning it, and hopefully by 2026, I'll know enough to really enjoy myself there. Yeah, I got a little bit of time. Yeah. So who are you going with?
I'm going with South Korea. I just feel like, can you imagine, like, not everyone in South Korea or North Korea lives near that border, but when you talk about a border that, like, literally they stare at each other all day long with guns pointed at each other. Like, South Korea just, I don't know, I feel like they could probably feel that tension, and they're ally of the United States. They deserve our podcast.
My two first cousins, they both married guys who were in the Army, and I've talked about my cousin Elaine and her husband David, who had been to Afghanistan and likes that better than Watertown. My other cousin Karen, her husband Chris, is a lieutenant colonel, I believe, in the Army, and they got stationed right on the DMZ for 3 years.
Kidding.
And they had a choice where either Chris could go over by himself for 2, or the whole family could go for 3.
Wow.
And they chose, because he's got young girls, that they all went over there. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago now. And they were only about 20 miles from the DMZ in this small little Koreatown. town. Most of the soldiers are deployed in Seoul, but they were, because he was Army intelligence, he was like stationed at the DMZ. So they lived in this small Korean town, and the girls went to a school where, they had to learn Korean to learn, because they weren't on like an American airbase. And my cousin Karen shares a funny story about going to for a massage in Korea. And you probably didn't know this, Don, but the women are expected to be topless for the massage, and they not only massage your back, but they also massage your front. And it's not a Deshaun Watson type of massage, but the medicinal massages in Korea do feature both front and back. I don't know why that. Thanks for leading me there.
You bookended this program.
You're right, I did. Yeah. Wow, this one sideways.
You didn't cross a line though either time.
Listen, both of these things happen. Okay, I'm just your trusty reporter of news here.
So we're not just football guys.
Yeah, worldly. We're worldly.
All right. Well, hey, go Bills.
Yeah, we'll see everybody next week. Thanks.
Now listen up. All you ever asked for is an opportunity. You got it today. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
I want to bid you now farewell, but not goodbye.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Today is a bittersweet day for me. Memories, many of which which Mr. Wilson has alluded to, flood my mind right now. I'm surrounded by my thoughts and indeed by the presence of friends unparalleled. Visions from a lifetime of thrills keep flashing before me, and yet the future beckons, and I look forward to it with excitement and anticipation. Because I'll tell you something, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. So I advanced it on that. And we finally came to an agreement and decided to move forward. And so now my time with the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, has come to its natural conclusion. How do I begin to thank all those who have been instrumental in enriching my life here? Well, I can't do it adequately, and I know it. I can't adequately. But I'll remember you all fondly and forever.
North Fox, so it's an early day. Be sure you get your taping and breakfast in. The meeting tomorrow for all players will be an 8 a.m. meeting. Enjoy your day today, fellas.
It's great because it was a special group of people at a special time in the city. The team that we had really unified the region. And there are still people who think fondly of those things and remember some significant things that happened during that time that were pretty cool.
You see, our fans are great. You know, they come out, they get excited, they come out and they cheer before the game. They're there, ready to go. And when you see that, when you walk out of that tunnel, you know, right now, here comes the electricity.